Welcome to the Content Amplified podcast, brought to you by Masset. Our goal is to help you get more from your marketing content. Each episode is a 10 to 15 minute interview with industry experts that share amazing insights to help you squeeze as much juice from your content as you possibly can. Here's today's interview.
Welcome back to another episode of Content Amplified. Today I'm joined by Andrew. Andrew, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ben. Appreciate it a lot.
You bet. I'm excited to have you on the show. Well, I'm really excited for the subject, but before we dive in, Andrew, we'd love to get to know you. Tell us a little bit more about your career, what you love about marketing, and let us kind of get kicked off on the right foot and get to know you.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I've been in marketing for 25 years now. It's a long time. And I kind of cut my teeth very early in the email marketing days. That's kind of where I got my start. And I've kind of I kind of look at email as the unsung hero of digital marketing, right? And it's been a great time to be able to kind of take to watch email both kind of explode in popularity, and then everybody said for a while it was dead, and now it's kind of had a little bit of a renaissance and resurgence, and it's kind of solidified its place, in the digital marketing space. So that's really what I've kind of spent a lot of my career doing. I've had plenty of experience doing all the other stuff too: PPC, SEO, social media, lots of social media, and those kinds of things. So. And I've worked for a lot of different companies, worked for agencies, I've worked for small businesses, I've worked for some nonprofits. So I've had a really varied career in terms of who I work with. And, the thing that I kind of learned is that, the best marketing principles and techniques you can take with them really to any industry. So that's kind of the way that I've structured my career.
Well, I'm really excited about the subject. This is something that I'm really curious to learn about and learn from you how you do this. So you've got this interesting methodology for content scoring and segmentation that basically lets you not just segment by demographics, the things that we normally look at, the typical variables we all throw into things, right, but really by like actual topics of interest.
Yeah.
How does this work? Like, how are you able to break it down to a content level and interest level?
Most businesses that I've worked for have kind of 4 or 5, main topics, right? Things that they talk about. The company I work for now, for example, does leadership development and kind of executive coaching and that kind of a thing. And so you've got these kind of broad topics like leadership or executive coaching or team dynamics or succession planning. And so one of the things that we're in the middle of kind of working on is implementing this process where we send out an email newsletter to our large database. And then we basically capture what people click on, like which articles they click on. And we can set it up in, HubSpot or Marketo or whatever you use to basically say, if they click on this specific link or this specific article, then we give them a checkbox on their profile within the CRM and say, this person is interested in this topic, right? We'll just say team dynamics, for example. And what that allows me to do is to say, okay, I'm going to send you 3 or 4 emails specifically about team dynamics. Because when people click on an article, it indicates that they're interested, but I want to know how interested they are really, right? Like you say you're interested in team dynamics, but okay. So we build these I call them interest-based accelerators, which I need a different name because that's not great. But basically the idea is you send them these 3 or 4 emails and then you see how they open, how they click on them. And based on how they open, click, and react to those emails, I give them a score. So for the first email, typically you get, a few points for opening it and a few more points for clicking on it. And then if you get to the second and you open that one, you get more points. If you get to the third one and you open that one and you click on stuff, you get even more points. And that way I can say, okay, if you've reached this specific threshold, say like 50 points, for example, then I know that you're really, really interested in team dynamics. And so what I do then is I say, okay, this person is interested in team dynamics. I can send that over to my sales team and say, when you call this person, because they've given us some interest, talk to them about team dynamics to make sure that you're prepared with all that other good stuff. And when you walk into that conversation, you'll know exactly what they're interested in and what they want and why they want it. And that makes their sales job, the sales guys' lives like significantly easier. And it makes my life a whole lot easier too, because at the end of the day, all I got to do is kind of slice and dice my database based on what content they're interested in, and then I can format my emails so that their specific content comes to the top of the email, and that way I can increase my open rates and click rates.
I love that. So when you're working with these groups, so let's say someone doesn't hit the scoring threshold, do you uncheck the box? How does that work? And how do you then kind of keep exploring what topics they're interested in?
It's a great question. So one of the things that we that I've done in the past is if they let's say they get through the second email and then they die, right? They don't kind of reach the level of interest there. We keep the checkbox checked within the CRM that they're still interested in that particular topic, but we set it up so that we say, okay, they're only sort of interested in it. So I might have another box basically that says medium interest or whatever. And so I can run a query out of my database that says, show me everybody who is interested in team dynamics, but only has medium interest, right? And then put them in a list. And then all of a sudden I can just send them a segment. And maybe they get an email once a month about that instead of once a week. But it gives me a chance to kind of rank order their content basically and what their interests are. I haven't quite gotten to it yet, but there is a way for you to do it in HubSpot where you can rank order their content based on those particular checkboxes and scores. So it'll just kind of come in and pull in the content by way of a token or by way of a snippet. That'll give you a chance to kind of say, okay, they're interested in team dynamics first and then executive coaching second, and it'll just build the email kind of automatically in order, and it will reflect their specific topic interests in order. And that's kind of the idea. So we haven't quite got to that ideal just yet. We don't have the data there, but we're working on it.
Very cool. So you said they enter, typically they're engaging with the website, they're looking at content. Typically, are database entries going through the website, or have you collected them some other way and then you're sending out generic messaging like blog stuff, and then as they engage, they get into these sequences? How does that flow of entrance and discovery work?
That's a great question. So most of the time what we do is it's almost a pure SEO play. So we do blog posts and we pick the broad topics, right? We have our categories that we've set aside and our blog tags and all that good stuff, right? It's all set up in their broad topics, and we just post as often as we possibly can on those. We do social media on those. And then we also, what we do with them is we send out a broad email to our huge database, and then we see which ones they click on, right? And so that gives them the category. But in order to get people in and kind of assorted, it's all through SEO. We just have a little thing that's basically at the bottom of most blog posts that says sign up for our newsletter. And that's a thing that I think a lot of folks miss, honestly, on their blog, is that they don't realize that that's kind of you got to have the call to action. And the call to action is really easy. Just give us your email address if you want more of this stuff. And that's the pure content play. So, email really sits at kind of that middle of the funnel side of things. It doesn't really do top of funnel very well. It can if you're desperate, but it doesn't do top of funnel real well. So if you get it middle of funnel, bottom of funnel, and you understand where it sits, then email can be really powerful in that way.
Okay, I love that. So now they've got the checkbox on one or multiple subjects. Are they no longer getting the broad emails? Are they getting specific messaging? Do you have to segment ongoing outreach consistently to be very topic based, or how do you kind of maintain that long-term relationship with them in your database?
Such a good question. The answer is that they still get the broad stuff, and I definitely don't segment the big broad stuff because that's the multiverse of madness. There's no way. So it's much easier and much more effective, honestly, to segment in these kind of smaller tracks. And so when we've got content or a webinar, for example, on a specific topic, then we just basically ping the heck out of them because they're interested in it, and we don't want them to miss it. But it becomes really easy to say, okay, well, I've got a database of say 100,000, and I've got 20,000 people interested in team dynamics. Probably not that many, maybe 3,000 or 4,000, right? Interested in team dynamics, and it's one of my highest categories. So I ought to do a webinar for that group, and it makes my ability to kind of map out and plan out the content really easy, because then I can say my segments tell me where the majority of my interest lies. right? And so it becomes easy to say, well, we should just, keep going and give this particular group more content, more interest, because it's bigger than, say, the group over here that does executive coaching or whatever it happens to.
Love it. Now, as you're providing this very specific, topically interested content, you talked about score outs and handing them off to sales. Does it also influence, like, in email call to actions? Do those change depending on, topics of interest and level of interest, obviously stage of the buyer's journey? How does the call to action change based off of topical interest?
Yeah, for sure. It absolutely changes. When you get kind of later on in the sequences, it doesn't very much, because at that point, if you've gone through all the sequence and you've engaged with it, it's basically, hey, listen, it's time to buy at this point. And if they decide not to, then we kind of kick them back into the large group and just let them kind of sit there for a little while and say, well, they were really interested but not ready to buy, and so we want to know what the thing is that they're ready to buy on. But so later on down the sequence, that's the way. But early on in the sequence, what we're really trying to do is trying to answer the question, how interested are you really? Right.
Mm-hmm.
So we try different and more deeper experiences. So that means, like, that first email can be like an evergreen webinar, or video series that we put together on that particular topic, or it can be an interactive survey or something like that, or quiz or something along those lines, but just stuff to keep them interested in the topic, or to see how interested they really are. And so that the calls to action are going to change just based on where they happen to be in the funnel usually.
Very cool. As you're collecting these subjects, how are you aligning from an email perspective with the content writing happening on the blog? You mentioned like some kind of category design, but how have you really built that relationship across the board to make sure that the whole synthesis of content is seamless throughout the experience?
That's the hardest part of all of this,
Okay.
100%. The principle maybe that I would talk to, because we don't have the time to get into some of the technical details because there's a lot, but the principle I would say is I almost always let the top of funnel drive the content map. So the blog and the SEO and the website, all that good stuff, it's all that is what drives what content happens to be there. And then I let email essentially feed off of what kinds of content the blog is telling me is interested in. How many people signed up for the Team Dynamics blog versus the executive coaching blog? And then we'll put all of our effort there, because the middle of the funnel requires, and this is another thing that I think at least I've learned in my life, is that the top of the funnel requires a lot of content, but it requires a lot of short content. The middle of the funnel requires the same amount, but it's got to go way deeper, especially if you're doing B2B. And so it becomes hard, because it's like, oh God, I got to do yet another webinar, write yet another white paper, or case study or some other thing along those lines. It's forever. And so, like, you've got to figure out how do I create content in the middle of the funnel that is both has breadth and depth. And the only way to do that is to let the blog and let the audience tell you what they want, and then you go make it.
I love that. So I love how you're using the analytics to describe the topics. Does it ever lead you to figuring out new topics that you should explore or add to the system based off of behavior in the system?
Most of the time, we kind of know what the topics are that people are interested in broadly. And then if another topic comes up that we hadn't really considered, it becomes a little bit more niche, almost like a subtopic of some of the kind of the general categories. I think at Leadership Circle, we've got, where I currently work, we've got 11 or 12 main categories that we're working off of.
So that's pretty big already from the very get-go.
Yeah. So it's hard to kind of find new ones, and the ones that we might find may not have the same level of interest or the same addressable market, basically.
And I'm assuming those topics directly correlate with services and offerings that the business provides.
100%. Yep.
Okay. Awesome. I love it. Well, Andrew, I have learned a ton. This is amazing content. Really makes me think about how to segment my own audience. I'm sure a ton of people will find the same value.
Right.
But Andrew, if anyone wants to continue the conversation online, connect with you, interact with you, how can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn. I talk a lot there about marketing automation, obviously, since that's a thing that I'm into, and leadership and a few other things. So just find me on LinkedIn. If you search for Andrew Parker, Leadership Circle, I'll pop right up.
Love it. Love it. Well, again, Andrew, thank you so much for the insights and information today.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Content Amplified podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review. And for additional ways to get more out of your content, visit our website at getmasset.com. That's getmasset.com. And tune in next time to the Content Amplified podcast.